Hey folks, yeah, I know, it's been an awful long time. A lot happened in 3 years. We moved from 25 acres near Bemidji to a third of an acre city lot in Duluth, Minnesota. And there are a lot of reasons for that. A couple big ones are the 2 grandkids that are now 4 miles away instead of 160. So just haven't had a lot to do a video about since then. I guess I made some raised beds with bed caps. I'll show you those at some other point. But what I wanted to do today is start taking you through the process of building a 10 by 16 foot hoop house. Son and daughter-in-law want one in their backyard, and we'd love to have one here, but we've got 15 maple trees in our yard, so we don't really have the sun for it. So anyways, I came up with a bender, my own design again, of course, so I just kind of want to walk you through it and see if any of you are interested in building a hoop house using this method. Is about as inexpensively as I can do it. So in the past, I built 2 12-foot by 24-foot hoop houses at our other house, and I used the top rail, the chain link top rail, 1 3/8" they say it is outside diameter. But I opted with this hoop house for 1-inch conduit. They're basically the same price now. And I just weighed these two. Now the top rail is 10 feet 6 inches, so it's actually 6 inches longer than the 1-inch conduit. But this weighs, the top rail weighs 6 pounds 5 ounces, and the 1-inch conduit weighs 6 pounds 7 ounces. 6 inches shorter, a little less diameter, but a little more metal to it. So I was wondering if it would be strong enough, and it certainly has to be every bit as strong as that top rail. So I'm going to try not to jabber on too much here and show you how I'm bending these pipes. Now, if you recall from my other escapades in pipe bending, tubing bending, we're going to start with the tubing at the end of the bender through the strap. And again, I'll show you the bender in detail after we finish this up. So remember, it's kind of like rowing a boat. You grab onto the end of the tubing and pull it towards you, almost to the end of the bender. Slide it forward a foot or so. Now this is important. We don't want a corkscrew shape on this tubing, so we want to make sure that it lays flat. That's why putting it on the bed of the trailer assures us that we're going to have this thing laying flat as it bends. So we'll just keep going. Bend, push forward, flat on the bed of the trailer. Bend, push forward a foot or so. Now, we're not going to bend it all the way. We're only going to bend it to 8 feet. So 2 feet up from the end, we're going to put a mark here. Now when we get to this point, we're going to bring that mark to the end of the bender, and then I'm going to use my cheater bar. I didn't have one anymore, so I went down to the local hardware store, got a piece of 1/2 inch galvanized, didn't have to be galvanized of course, but a little smaller than the inside diameter of the tubing, so I just built it up with some poly tubing and one layer of duct tape. So we'll stick that in. Now we're going to want to bring that mark to the end of the bender and just tweak it just a little bit. Now we don't want to overdo it. Just tweak it a little bit. Now what you want to have is one that's already bent as a template. So now I can set this one on top here get a pretty good idea of them being about the same here on this end. Okay. Now, you can see now if we were going to leave the tubing like this, see, this is the vertical part, the base. You can see down here, I'll take you over and show you. You can see over here, which would be 5 feet over, that's not horizontal. So in order for the tubing halves to meet up and butt up and join together, we want that pretty much horizontal. So I'll show you how we do that. Okay, for those of you who want to see it again or weren't paying attention, we're going to do one more here. So we start with the tubing at the end through our strap. Like rowing a boat, we're pulling the tubing just to the end of the bender. We're not going to go past it at all. Make sure that as you pull it forward, the tubing that travels past the bender is laying right on the bed of the trailer. That's really important. Keep it flat. Okay. Now I measured my spot 2 feet up from the end, so at 8 feet, we're going to line our mark on the tubing with the end of the bender. Stick our cheater bar in there. This one's 30 inches, just plenty. And forward just a little bit, and just tweak it a bit. Now let's just say, it's totally hypothetical of course, but let's just say we messed up. We bent one of our little tweaks, we over tweaked. So you can come up with a lot of creative ways to de-bend it. And here's one that I came up with. Just using the rails from the trailer like that, I can just put it in there and then kind of tweak it back, kind of de-bended it. And, you know, that's, you know, of course, assuming a person needed to do something like that. There's other things you could do. You could find a forked tree and tweak it in there. You could even maybe reverse it in the bender, but I don't know that you want to put too much pressure on that strap. But anyways, that's just a thought on the outside chance that something might have gotten overbent a little bit. So now we take the end that was bent to 8 feet and tweaked just a tiny bit past it. We put that through our strap. And then we're going to measure from the end, we're going to measure 9 inches and 5 inches. Okay, now we're going to take our cheater bar, we're going to move the tubing up so that 9-inch mark is at the end of the bender. And put our cheater bar in here, and we're going to just tweak it just a little bit. Move it to the 5-inch mark. Make sure that this is not past that 5-inch mark. And then another little tweak. Now we're going to double check all this. By using our template one. So at the end here, I'm just taking a little spring clamp, clamping those two together so that I can see now. I probably need to tweak this just a little bit more to get it to match up with the one that I've already bent. So just a digit more. That's pretty darn good. Good enough for the, well, that's pretty darn good. This is the bender that I built, and I made another one for the 12-foot hoop house that I can show you at the end of this video, I guess, when I show you how I made these benders and give you a little more detail on the dimensions. But right now, I have this bender clamped to the bed of our trailer. I didn't want to put any holes through the bed of the trailer, so 3 clamps do the trick. So this is a 10-foot hoop house, so each half is going to be 5 feet. It's handy that this trailer is 5 feet wide, so I can use it as a guide to make sure that I have the right size, the right dimensions for each half. Now, I've already been busy bending a few, so let's go ahead and bend the rest of these, and then I'll take you from there. So now you can see, after lining it up with the edge of the trailer down there, it's pretty much vertical there, and then it comes up here. It's just, you know, 1.5 inches past 5 feet, but we'll take care of that when we put it together. It'll bend back, but now you can see we're pretty much horizontal at the end. So these two halves of the bows are going to butt together nicely up at the top, up at the ridge. So I took the bender off the trailer, I declamped it, and just to show you quickly, this is just a 2x6, and it's 3 feet long, and then I just measured vertically every 6 inches. So starting in the center at 18 inches, it's the full width of the board, 5.5 inches, over 6 inches, and up it's 4 7/8, and that's of course on both sides. And then 3 7/8 over another 6 inches, and then down at the very end, the strap kind of covers the markings, but it's 2 3/8. So 2 3/8, 3 7/8, 4 7/8, 5.5, 4 7/8, 3 7/8, and then again at the end, 2 3/8. So I use a speed square, make my vertical lines measure up, and just tap a brad in there, and then just sweep it with a batten. Just sweep that arc and draw it, and then I'll have a picture showing that process, I guess. And then I cut it out roughly with the saber saw, keeping it on the outside of my line. And then since I have a hand planer, I then go over that again, and I bring it down to the line with a planer that gives it just a little smarter edge. But certainly can just do the whole thing with just a saber saw. Just cut carefully, cut it on the line, and you got yourself a bender. And the strap is just a piece of hanger something, you know, in the section with all the what do you call it, the hangers, the joist hangers and all that stuff. There are these straps, and they're different lengths, and I just cut a piece of that. And you want it long enough so that the hole is near the bottom. You want a lot of wood above that hole, because otherwise there's a lot of force on that, and you don't want to break the wood, or you want to minimize the chances of breaking the wood. So give yourself enough meat there, and that's pretty much it. So just remember to bend, start your bend. So I write on the back here that this is for a 10-foot hoop house. Bend to 8 feet, tweak past it a bit, and then at the top end of the bend, tweak it a little bit at 9 inches and at 5 inches to get that horizontal end where the two halves are going to join together. And we'll talk about all of that when we assemble this hoop house. So right now I just am bending the pipe and just got the wood for the hoop house, the base, and then for the end walls. End walls are the kind of the trickiest part of a hoop house, so I think. But I think I got it figured out. Those of you who remember me might recall that I'm kind of frugal, and so I always try to come up with ways to save some money on a project and be maybe a little innovative and try to do something that works well without spending a lot of money. Well, anyways, on my other hoop houses I bought a big spool of this vinyl batten tape, which was made for commercial greenhouses, and it was like 80 bucks or something plus shipping or whatever, and I had enough of it to build probably 3 12 by 24 hoop houses. But in our sale, who knows where that ended up. So I was going to order some more, but I didn't want to order all of that, spend all that money just for one 10 by 16 hoop house. So I bought some of this lawn furniture re-webbing, which is a polypropylene that is UV resistant, of course. And I was going to cut this into strips to use as batten tape. Now, batten tape is what you drive the staples through when you're putting the plastic onto the wood parts or to the end walls, that keeps the staples from pulling out quite so easily. So anyways, wait till you see what I came up with to cut this stuff. So I'm going to flip this thing on and just start pulling it through. So I cut these into 16-foot lengths, so that'll do each side of the hoop house. I hope you can see what's going on here, and I'll just almost to the end, so I'll just keep you around here till I finish this up. That's it. There, got a nice strip, a nice batten tape. So the reason I use that hot wire is that not only does it cut it, but it pretty much cauterizes that raw cut. So it'll hopefully just keep it from unraveling, is the theory. I imagine you could just cut this stuff and hope it doesn't unravel on you. But if you're going to go the cheap route and use this lawn furniture webbing and you don't want to cut it, I imagine what you could do is just fold it in half and staple through that. But you want it to be able to flex, because I'm going to use it on the end walls too. So I want it to be able to bend a little bit as I'm working it to kind of conform to the curvature of the end walls. But I'll show you that when we get to it. Anyways, thought you might want to see that part of the operation. The site was really low here and not entirely level, of course. So what Peg and I did yesterday is we had 2 cubic yards of Class 5 gravel delivered onto the driveway, way down there. downhill of course. And so we wheelbarrowed all of it up here to build up the floor and along the sides and the low spots to get it about as even as we could. And as you can see, between the time we finished late yesterday afternoon and by last night, it's become a construction site. But that's okay. So, as you recall, this was a 10 by 16 foot hoop house. And here's the corner we started at. So we just set a stake at that corner, and then we measured down 16 feet. Our bows, or hoops, are spaced every 4 feet. And what we did is we drove pipe, and this is the top rail, the chain link top rail, which is what I built my previous hoop houses using it, the 12-foot wide hoop houses. And again, I have a bender for that, and I can show you at the end of this video. But I bought 2 of those and cut them into 2-foot lengths. So there are 10 of them. And then we drove them down to, just using a sledgehammer, just drove them down to within an inch of the baseboard, and then just lopped off that inch because it became all mushroomed because of the hammering, and then just lopped it off with a metal cutting blade on a reciprocating saw, and then just filed the inside a little bit so that the 1-inch conduit, which conveniently fits exactly inside the top rail pipe. So once we got that in, then we laid this board, and then we worked from this. And we did the old 3, 4, 5 triangle, measured out 3 feet on one corner, from one corner, 4 feet from the other, and then measure the hypotenuse of that triangle. And then we move this board in and out until that hypotenuse angle is 5 feet. So the 3, 4, 5 triangle gets you a reasonably square corner. So then we set this one, that board, and then we set this one, and of course leveled. And then when we got to this corner, we measured our diagonals. So diagonally from that side to this side, measure, and then from this corner to this corner, we measured diagonally just to verify that we had a good rectangle. And then to secure the bows, what I did is we measured down 4.5 inches from the top of the board, and then drilled 1/4-inch hole through the metal and through the wood, and then so we put just a 1/4-inch carriage bolt in there, so that when the bows, the hoops, were set in the pipe, they seated on that bolt, so that they're all 4.5 inches down. And then we secured the tops. I can show you here. I just used a strap bracket. This will focus. There we go. And then I just bolted that to the board, and then just used a self-tapping screw to secure through both pipes. So that secured all these posts. Now on the end, those are 4-inch lag screws that go through the board, through both layers of pipe, and into the end of the end board. The end walls, which again are the kind of the problematic part of hoop house construction, because it's sometimes difficult to get an end wall with something to staple to secure the plastic on the sides. So first of all, my end walls, I just took a pressure treated the decking and ripped one in half, an 8-footer, and then one piece up here, I just set that up and then scribed so that I could get the curvature up there. And these are just secured with screws coming down from up above. And then here, I use these mending plates, never used them before, but we used the sledgehammer and hammered them in on both sides. And then I toe screwed on each side also. So it's secure enough. It's just a quick and easy butt joint. So the top height is over 7 feet. Okay, so here's the innovative part. So this is that, if I can get this to focus, this is that PVC trim board. Is 1.25 inches, so the finished thickness is 1 inch. And so, or width was 1 inch. And so I cut 3/4 inch strips of this on the table saw, kind of a messy job. And then just, it easily bends to conform the hoops, and then we just secured that with self-tapping. Where is one? Self-tapping sheet metal screws every 16 inches. So this gives us a surface for stapling too. Okay, so the purlin, the top ridge, my previous 4 hoop houses I built, 5 hoop houses I built, I used pipe and straps, and they're kind of expensive. So I thought this time I'm just going to go with wood. So I sprung for cedar. So this is just one 8-foot, 5/4 cedar piece of decking, 6 inch. I ripped in half lengthwise, find a nice grained one that's going to behave itself when you rip it, and ripped it in half. It's secured up here just with 2.5 inch finishing screws. And then in the center, I just bought one 8-footer, and I just made a bracket. This is just from an old 4-foot fluorescent fixture. I just cut a rectangle out of the sheet metal and then just bent it 1 inch so that it made a nice bracket in the center to support it. But it's a good strong rail. And then I probably should get the ladder. Why don't I do that, and I'll show you how I secured this up on top. The hoops at the top are secured with a 1 inch coupler, which you can find in the conduit, electrical conduit section, and then just a 1 inch strap bracket that's just screwed with deck screws down into the top ridge. So I did that on the 3 hoops that are inside the end walls, and then at the end walls I just secured the pipes together with just a piece of 3/4 inch plastic conduit, which slips perfectly inside. So that's just a sleeve that fits inside them, and then that top piece is secured. I'll go over and show you that. That top board is 41.5 inches wide. So it's just a piece of treated thick decking, 6 inches, 1 by 6, 1 1/4 by 6 or whatever, and then I cut it to 41 1/2 inches, and then just found the center line, set it up there, got it level, and then just scribed that, the hoop contour up there, and then cut that out on the saber saw, and then just secured it with 2 3/4 inch screws from up above, with 2 for each board. So then this top plate is just secured to the hoops just with a 2 3/4 inch finishing screw through the hoop down into the wood, just one on each side. I think that's sufficient, strong enough. A person could always strap it down with some strapping or something if you felt like it needed it, but it's not going anywhere. So that's just an overview of how we got to this point. So until we get the plastic on, I think we're done here. So I'll come over with the camera again, and I don't know if I'll actually film the plastic going on process. It kind of depends on if I'm doing it by myself or if I have help, or the main thing is how windy it is, what direction the wind's coming from. Putting on the plastic is a bit of a challenge sometimes, but not all that bad. So anyways, 10 by 16, pretty nice size for a hoop house. Our other ones were 12 by 24, but nice headroom in here. Nice floor space. Connor wanted to repurpose his old raised beds, so I cut them down to 32 inches, and then they run the full length of one side of the floor here. So that side will be raised bed gardening, and this side over here is going to be some container gardening, and then this is where the hammock goes in the spring and the fall. So until we get the plastic on, I'll see you later. Well, the plastic's on, the doors are on. They're starting to move into it. I guess we call her good. So I'll take you around and show you what we've done here, and just a few more pointers and tips, and then I'll let you go. The doors, I did the fancy biscuit joinery on them. So that's I have the equipment, and it's the easiest, best way to do it as far as I'm concerned. And I just ripped some pine, just 1-inch pine, and just made a simple door. That's what I did in the other hoop houses, and they always held up pretty well. So my handy dandy door stop is just a piece of pipe driven into the ground, and then just put a piece of poly pipe over the top to act as a door stop. So my my homemade batten tape that I ripped little strips, I cut with that hot wire cutter. The chair webbing, well, that seems to work okay, but I was digging in the shed yesterday, and I found the remaining portion of the spool of the vinyl batten tape, the real stuff that I'd used on other hoop houses, and it looks like there probably would have been enough to do this one. So, you know, if it doesn't hold up, we can always just redo it. So a 10 by 16 hoop house turned out to be a nice size for their small yard. And I'd never made one 10 feet before. There'd always been 12, so I had to come up with another bender. And it worked out pretty good. Now, if you go back to how I bent those on the trailer bed, what's key is to be consistent. Get one bent, use your trailer bed or use whatever you have as a template or a kind of a pattern for how that first one should set. So you want the base part to be vertical, so that'll run along that edge of the trailer, and a 5-foot bed on the trailer. By the time it curves over and the top end meets the other side of the trailer, that part should be horizontal, because the two tops are going to butt together, and in this case I used couplers and just coupled them together. So make the first one, get it just how you want it set on that trailer bed, vertical at the base, horizontal at the top, 5 feet from the base to the top. And then put a P on that, use it as your pattern. That'll be the one that you're going to reference all the other ones that you've been. Just set that pattern one on top and kind of spring clamp it at one end so it stays right on top of the other one, and get them all consistent. So that's the key. I guess the point I'm trying to make is be consistent in your bending, that they're all the same. That's the important part. And I'm pleased with how they came out. You know, had to do that little tweaking at the top, a little bit at the 9-inch and the 5-inch, just tweak it just a little bit past, and do it the same way on each one. And they all came out pretty darn nice. And I liked using the wood as the top purlin. That worked out good too. I like it. Using cedar, 1-inch cedar, it's a full inch. And then I made my little brace at the center, so I got by with 1 8-footer ripped in half lengthwise. So all in all, I'm pleased. And the PVC PVC trim board that I ripped 1 inch wide, I ripped and used self-tapping sheet metal screws and screwed it into the underside of the hoops or the bows on the end walls. Turned out to be the quick and easy way to attach your plastic to the end walls, which is the most problematic part really of a hoop house. I think some of them aren't all that attractive than the end walls, where they bunch a bunch of plastic together and such. So anyways, I'm happy. Connor and Kelly are happy, the kids are happy, and hope it serves them well for many years to come. So maybe I'll make a few videos here during the gardening season. Now we're urban gardeners. I just planted some self-watering planters on the deck, so nice and warm today, but we got 30s. Maybe they're talking snow this weekend, so hopefully not, but I got a roll cover over them. So anyways, till next time, is Mark again with Backwood Basics. So let's grow together. Hey folks, it's me again. I thought you got rid of me. Well, it's been so long since I've done these videos that the video maker thing I used to use is no longer supported, and so I had to come up with some other thing that I don't quite know how to do it, and wouldn't let me upload images. And anyways, I kept promising that I would show you the bender that I made for a 12-foot hoop house. And this is a bender that you could use for the top rail, the chain link top rail, 1 3/8, or you could use the 1-inch conduit, which is what I used and actually kind of recommend it. But anyways, this bender is 39 inches long, and as with my other bender, every 6 inches put a vertical line, except at the end. The last one is 7.5 inches. So using a 2x4 or a 2x6, at the top 5.5 inches.
over 6 inches, draw up to 5 1/4, over another 6 inches, 4 1/4, and then the last one, if you're going the full 39 inches, measured over 7 1/2 inches, it's up 2 1/2 inches. So 5 1/2 in the center, 5 1/4 over 6 inches, 4 1/4 over another 6 inches, and then 2 1/2 at the end if you're going 7 1/2 inches, 39. And then again, the strap at the end is just that strapping that I used. And anything that's good and sturdy enough should work. So I'll bring the camera over and show you those dimensions again, just in case you don't understand what I'm saying here. So once again, in the center, 5 1/2 inches up, over 6 inches, 5 1/4, over another 6 inches, 4 1/4, and then going 7 1/2 inches down to 2 1/2. And that's the same on both sides. And then here again is that strapping that I used to make my strap.